Okay guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we have a special video for you guys, and actually it's I guess it's like a first episode to a series because this truck behind us is very crazy and there's a lot to go over, so there's no way we're gonna have enough time to cover this in one episode. So this is gonna be a series of 4 videos, and I guess this one is just gonna dive right in. We have a couple people behind me here. You guys know CJ, he's our fabricator, one of our fabricators. And we have Stu here. Stu is from Meso Customs. You guys have seen him on the videos. I'm sure you've seen both of these guys if you watch our channel. Anyhow, this truck, let's jump right into it. This truck is, believe it or not, a Tacoma, or at least it was at one point. This project is called the HellTaco. We're gonna get into that, why it's called HellTaco, but it's all gonna make sense in a minute here. We've been working on this, CJ, for how long now?
I've been working on it for a little, almost a year and a half, but it's been at the Stellar built facility for what, 3 years plus?
Yeah, so it's been a while, and it's been through a few versions before it got to this point.
Correct.
So Stu, maybe you can tell us a little, how did it get to this point, and maybe give a little background. We can do a little overlay and plug in some old photos.
For sure. So yeah, this is called the HellTaco, and like you mentioned, we'll get into that, but it originated as a standard long travel, you know, Tacoma double cab long bed build, kind of your cut and dry, bread and butter. That worked, but then I wanted to go the next step. I wanted more power. So then we built a custom twin turbo kit for it. Twin turbo, the 3.5, blew up that motor, yanked it out. Obviously we know the motors on these are gutless, so it needed more power. At that point, we transitioned to a 2JZ.
Pop the hood. 2JZ engine, no shit.
So we had a 2JZ block ready to go in this, but I started rethinking it, and I wanted some American muscle. I want some V8 muscle. I didn't want to wind that thing out. So we decided on a Hellcat engine. So that's why this is a Taco, and with a Hellcat engine. So it birthed the HellTaco.
Nice.
And that's the story behind the power plant of this vehicle.
You decided to put some freedom into the Japanese truck. And how did you come up with the idea of going crazy? Like, what pushed you over the edge to say, you know what, let's go all out. Let's dial up Stellar.
Calm now.
So we know all builds can spiral out of control, you know. It started with going bigger motor, which then we needed to strengthen the chassis, which then we went super long travel and 4-link, which then transpired to this front clip. This is all custom. This is actually not even Toyota related. This is off of Ford Bronco front subframe. So we wanted the most travel possible, and then it went into the roll cage. We need to stiffen up the frame, the chassis. We want to make it safe, and that's where CJ and Stellar guys, they came in and knocked it out with an awesome build.
Okay, well, obviously there's a lot to go over, so let's just jump right into it. I'm gonna let CJ take the reins on this, and you're gonna walk us through everything. I don't know how you want to do front to back. Do you want to start from the cage?
Right from the front all the way to the back.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, so like Stuart mentioned, this front frame is actually grafted off of like a mid-90s Bronco they call TTB, twin traction beam. It's pretty much the easiest way to get wheel travel with working four-wheel drive. So I think that was a big deciding factor on going with that suspension. Do an IFS with a lot of travel, or even a little bit of travel with four-wheel drive is pretty difficult to do. And then you can run bigger hubs and all that stuff. It's easy to upgrade. That was also required to fit the Hellcat engine because it didn't really fit that well in the Tacoma frame rails. So that was kind of a win-win to end up go that route. Outside of that, once that engine was mounted, we went with also the Chrysler. It's an 8-speed torque flight trans, 2-wheel drive. We'll see. Well, I'll tell you how that kind of affected the build as we progress from front to back. But yeah, Chrysler Hellcat engine, Chrysler 8-speed trans. After we knew that much power was going to be in this truck, that kind of rolled to, okay, now we need to make it safe. We need to do a nice roll cage in here, et cetera, et cetera. So. Okay,
so you're talking about the engine, but clearly it's not in here, so.
Yeah, it's not in here. It got pulled. That way Stuart can get that engine ready because there is a deadline. It's got to get ready for SEMA this year, 2024. But when the engine was in here, it definitely took up a lot of space, but that kind of dictated where everything landed as far as, shock placement and our cross braces. all of the tanks and overflow, coolant. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on here. We're probably not gonna be able to have time to go through everything, but this is essentially the gist of it.
But I mean, it will get addressed throughout the series.
Totally.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's just,
you'll see
there's
it fully
so
done.
many little details. It's impossible to go. I mean, this video would be 2 hours long if we went through everything. So let's just kind of jump through and at least run through the main bits and kind of show people the idea and the concept of how all this is tied together. So pulling the engine out, how did you do that? We got Heim joints here.
So this is essentially the core support. It is fully removable. That way, if you ever need to pull the engine, which we had to, this completely gets out of the way. You have full access to the front of the engine, the dress of it, whatever you want to do. This houses the radiator. This houses the vintage air AC condenser, and it houses and locates the heat exchanger, obviously for the supercharger. Yeah, so this whole thing is located essentially with Heim joints, and we have some tube connectors here. This isn't final welded yet. We still have to get that done, of course. Again, one of those time crunch things. But that locates that. What that is connected to is essentially part of the chassis. This thing's fully welded to the frame, and it ties into the roll cage. As you can see here, there's these kind of diagonal tubes that ties into the subframe. Everything ties into each other in one way or another. That way this thing is solid and sound and safe, right? So if we move on to the driver compartment area, you can see the roll cage, steering column. We've got all of the shifters for the transfer case, the factory 8-speed trans, and the Kivitech hydraulic handbrake setup that we're gonna be running on here. Along with the quick disconnect using a factory column, Willwood pedals, and the factory Hellcat gas pedal as well, that we made an adapter to adapt to where the factory gas pedal goes for the Tacoma.
So this cage is essentially now the chassis, right? It's completely welded in. I see all the way inside. It's gusseted on all the pillars, all 6 pillars, and even underneath, it's connected even underneath, welded up. So this thing, it's not ever coming out, this solid in there.
No, it is married forever. Yeah, so essentially like you showed, it's actually connected at the bottom as well. What we do is we made a subframe. I think we have some videos of that when we were doing the cage. Had a subframe to where once the cage was welded enough, we dropped it down to fully weld it and then brought it back up on the subframe, welded it directly to the Tacoma frame, or at least what's left, and the thing's solid. We got rid of some of the body mounts. We actually welded the cab to the roll cage as well. Everything is solid. It's not moving anywhere anytime soon.
And I had to, we had to make some access panels for clearance.
Yeah. How did you go about that? Did you call Behemoth or Atlas and be like, hey, I want to throw 1,000 horsepower at a truck?
Yeah, I saw Behemoth. I saw their transfer case pop up, and I said, "Will this fit for the build?" And he's like, "Sure. You just got to make sure the spline, the hub, made up to the transmission." Cool. Which we had that little short piece too.
So this is a 4-wheel drive.
This is 4-wheel drive. Yeah,
yes.
I wanted to utilize everything that came factory: 4 doors, long bed, 4-wheel drive. So it's a very abnormal build outside the box, but I was kind of keeping it to its roots, what this vehicle was.
Nice. Yeah. So this cage, obviously, it's all interconnected, but there's a few cool things that kind of tie into each other. You want to point some of that out? Kind of like how the box you created, the cover you created for the T-case, and how the cables come out, and then the seat mounts, how everything works around that?
Yeah, so when we kind of were placing the engine and transmission, obviously the transmission's 2-wheel drive, doesn't have a flange for a T-case, right? So Stuart called up Behemoth, like he was saying. That way it'll hold up to the high horsepower that he plans on putting in this thing. But it had to be a divorced setup, which means it's kind of auxiliary mounted. It's mounted probably about a foot or so behind the transmission, so it's kind of an odd place. It's not in the stock location. So in order to do that, I had to cut quite a bit of the floor out. That way it's not hanging past the frame and dragging everywhere. Make sure we had some proper clearance underneath of it, but also maintain good driveline angles and all that stuff. So as far as the paneling goes, some of the bolts, some of it's located through factory bolts, some of it's through nut certs, but essentially there's a housing that's welded to the floor or bolted, and then there's actually little inspection/access covers to get to the cables. That way, when we're working on and assembling it, disassembling it, it makes our lives a lot easier getting access to those. So with this protruding through the floor, obviously that kind of dictated where the seats are going to land, or the seat mounts are going to land, how they're going to attach to the roll cage or the body, however, right? Made it a little bit tricky, but we got them as low as we could. I mean, you could see that thing's right above the floor there. But it gives Stuart plenty of headroom. Even with a helmet, he's never going to contact the roof of that roll cage, which is always priority in my book. You never want any part of your body realistically touching the cage.
I'm surprised there's enough room, because I'm 6'1" and I had enough room.
Yeah, I've sat probably everyone in the shop here just to see kind of what kind of person fits in this cage.
Yeah.
So it's very much tailored to Stuart, but it also fits many other people as well, which is kind of nice. So if he ever sells it or wants anyone else to drive. So
damn, finish it first before talking about selling it.
But the seat mounts, they are kind of a hybrid setup. They actually locate. They're bolted into the roll cage, this rear bar here that actually has that hump that goes over the driveline tunnel. But they also are located with the factory front bolts. Reason why we wanted to do that is just simplicity, and also when he does carpet and wiring and all that stuff, right? It makes it a lot easier.
Accessibility for sure.
For accessibility, just to get in there and complete that job, as well as just maintain it, right? You want to vacuum or do whatever. So it's not a pure race truck, but it's just a pre-runner with kind of race truck twist to it, right? We don't want to really necessarily make it a burden to drive. He wants to take it, go get grocery shopping, pick his kids up from school. We don't want to do full race truck cage to where you got to climb in and out of it, right? It's not for that. It's just a fun truck that's also safe with whatever.
And with that being said, there is going to be a rear seat.
That's right. Well, yeah, 4 seats. The rear's actually
family rig.
Full family rig. Still a grocery getter. The rears actually utilize a rear PRP bench seat. There's kind of a tricky setup on this. We'll show you guys later how that works. But there is a little button here if you want to get a hint on that. It's kind of a trick setup. The fronts are just individual normal PRP buckets, solid, bolted in, nothing fancy on that. Nice. We didn't need it, but yeah.
And then that continues through the back. Now let's get to this part. This is a kind of almost like a centerpiece of the truck.
It is, yeah. So in my eyes, as far as shock mounts go, that's kind of, for me, the focal point. That's the highlight of the build, kind of the showcase, craftsmanship, quality, design. So I put a lot of time and focus on these. That's what I came up with. Everything ties into each other. This tube goes through the cab, which ties into the harness bar. From front to back, it is fully connected. There's no disconnection anywhere on it, right? There's not anything bolt in. It's all hard mounted in, it's welded up. This thing cycles right around 28 inches of travel in the back, but we're gonna strap it probably right around 26. We have a dual spare setup, as you can see. And you're probably wondering, oh, where's the fuel go? It's the big empty void right behind the cab. We have a fuel safe, 60-gallon fuel cell. Everything is very well fitted to this truck. Once the bedside's on here, there's no excess at all. Every bit of space is used to its full potential on the back half of this truck.
So this is what the top is looking like. Obviously on a pre-runner truck, the bottom, the arms are very important. That's another major component.
These are Solos, 55-inch trailing arm, essentially just their whole 4-link setup actually, for a Tacoma, right? We got this fitted to the truck, and then once we got the links in and got the shock mounts in, we realized we wanted to upgrade the rear end as well. So the rear end is from Solo as well. It's actually a Curry, based on a Ford 9-inch, 40 spline axles, 456 gears. Being that this is an 8-speed, we're gonna have plenty of, and 1,000 horsepower, we're gonna have plenty of power, full 456, plus kind of makes the gears a little bit stronger running that way.
So yeah, power through that rear end. We also need stopping power. So with we're running dual calipers, dual Wilwood 4-piston, one for the e-brake, handbrake, and one for the regular brakes.
Drift truck.
Yeah, we'll see. That's gonna be
hoon handle.
That'd be up to you to decide, right?
This whole rear X brace is fully removable, so we can get access to the fuel cell, the fuel system, the batteries. And what's also not pictured here is we have spots for our oil cooler and transmission cooler, which is going in the back by CBR.
And you got the filler neck that comes out right there.
Yep.
That gets connected.
Yeah, built that into the whole shock mount, which is pretty trick.
Yeah. Very cool. Sway bars?
Sway bars, yeah. So sway bar was a tricky setup on here. We had to get one essentially custom made. The arms are from Everson. Big shout out to John at Everson Performance for helping us out with that, figuring out what we want and what's going to work really well on this truck. And then the physical actual torsion sway bars from Swayaway. Again, that's a 35 spline setup.
I got a rattle somewhere.
A little WD-40.
Maybe it's these tires that are literally moving around.
So the factory Tacoma frame ended right here. And what we did is graft on, CJ did graft on totally new fabrication.
Yeah.
And that really dictated around the fuel cell, around the batteries and spare tire, and the shock locations of the pickup points.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that get bolted on here that it's hard to explain without them physically being there.
Right.
But as mentioned in the next videos, it's all going to come together and it's going to make sense. There's a lot of tabs and
Have
little
some
brackets.
body panels on, you'll get to see the
panels.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and on top of that, I actually wanted to take this opportunity to show the truck in this form. It's kind of like a raw form that you're probably never going to see this truck in again.
Right.
There's no reason to ever have it torn out like this because it's still got to get paint and all that stuff. So in my eyes, I wanted almost the simplest form of this truck to where you still got the idea and the overall picture.
Right.
But at the same time, I wanted to show what everything that we did here at Stellar Built was done. You know, if you had the seats in there, you couldn't see the seat mounts. If you had the fuel cell in there, you couldn't see the fuel cell mounts. So I really wanted to showcase all of the actual tube work and fab work while it's in this state and it's available to us to see in this, because it's, like I said, it's probably never going to be seen like this again.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, you did a killer job on this.
Thank you.
I know you were heading this project. You were all hands on. This is your baby right here.
Yeah.
So
it is. It'd
but
be sad to see it go.
From here, it's going to go to Stu's shop.
Yep.
And Stu, what can you just for like the next, what do we expect in the next
So
episode?
yeah, the next episode chapter, we're gonna start blowing the stuff down, powder coating it, go into paint for the interior, the cab, and then it's on to wiring and plumbing and start getting it together. And then the final will be the body panels, and this thing's gonna be super wide.
Yeah, and I know I've seen already a couple previews, and you've put together some really cool custom panels for this.
Yeah, it's based off of a Toyota vehicle, obviously, but widened a lot, custom fiberglass, custom molds, and this is definitely truly between the welding, the body panels, the drivetrain is going to be a one-off.
And what a coincidence! Look what's behind you. Just as a little hint.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just a quick little hint. So, okay, guys, that's going to bring the first episode to an end. I know we kind of flew over this, and there's a lot of details we just skimmed right over and missed. But we have to get this truck on the trailer. It's got to go to Stu's shop. We're going to cover all these things as it comes together, as this project starts. Finally, all the puzzle pieces start coming together. We're going to cover all the bits, all the cool little brackets, all the cool little panels and pieces Stu has. He has some cool stuff planned. Well, I'll just say that. So again, to reiterate, this is going to be a 4-part video. This is part 1. Keep an eye out for part 2. I know a lot of you guys who are watch these videos without subscribing. Go ahead and hit subscribe and follow along so you don't miss the other videos coming up. Eventually there will be a rig check. That is probably going to be the 4th video. So we will go over everything by that point. But until then, I think this is a wrap for now, boys. And we're going to go ahead and get this thing on the trailer and down the road. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, dude, it's not quite wrong now. You assign the bags.
That's what I got to run 50 on my short. So.
This one?
How do you feel, CJ? Bittersweet, but I'll see you again.
All right. We'll go over to the paint shop now and go over with the cab, and since I have it here, we're going to go.
Welcome back to our channel. We are going to have...
It's not so easy, is it?
Okay, guys, welcome.
Freedom Week, they all can buy vapes
Yeah.
or what?